Hello, Cinema Makeup School students, friends, family, and followers. So excited to have you here for another industry interview. Thank you for joining us. Today, our guest is a friend of the school. She's an award-winning makeup artist, makeup department head, and a beauty and health expert. I'm so excited to chat with her again. Thank you for joining us, Nikoletta Skarlatos.
Hi, Marielou. How are you? Hi, Cinema Makeup School and artists. How are you all? I hope you're well today.
Yes, we all hope you're well. Hope you guys are staying home, staying safe, and staying active. So we're going to talk to Nikoletta today about her career, along with what you can be doing at home to make sure you are on track once we get back on board. So Nikoletta, let's start with your career beginnings. How did you even end up as a makeup artist?
Oh, life is so incredible, isn't it? I was a dancer and I designed my own hair and makeup, made my costumes. I couldn't get a job in Seattle. I ended up meeting the head of Chanel. I quickly worked and went up the ladder with Chanel and Estee Lauder at a very young age. At the top, actually, of my field, I was running the West Coast as an account supervisor and account coordinator, and looking at formulations and designing cabinets and doing all kinds of amazing things. And I had just sort of boldly gone up to this woman who is still in my life. As a matter of fact, she's the CFO of my company, but she was, and I know she won't mind my saying this, she was really the devil wears Prada. Everyone was scared to death of her, but I didn't know who she was. So what did I know? So that's how I started. I had an accident, had to get out of the business, got in the business after about 5 years of healing myself. And I had the good fortune of being asked to work on a film that flipped, means it went from non-union to union, with the great actor Johnny Depp and great, fantastic mentor John Caglione. One can't say enough good things about either one of those two men. And in the film was Marlon Brando. It was called The Brave. And there were a lot of prosthetics, but I mean, I called the best hair laying person this guy, and he came out in a van and taught me. He was kind of like, "Hey kid, here's how you lay hair." And I'm sure I nagged John to death. But yeah, that was my first film. That got me into the film business. And I had been independent and non-union, and I had designed hair, makeup, and costume for huge campaigns, the Siegfried and Roy 3D IMAX movie. So I had been a department head and run my own departments. And then after that film, I department headed, but I did other things as well. And then around 2005, I was asked to do Pirates and Miami Vice the same year. In the case of Pirates, I started in background and ended up in trailer A eventually, which was fantastic. Everyone should start in background and learn everything about this business from the bottom up. Everything that I learned about Chanel and the cosmetic business, I learned from the bottom up. Lois, AKA the devil wears Prada, she hired me, but she made me learn everything. How to stock a shelf, where the stock comes from, get on your hands and knees and clean those counters. No free rides. And it's kind of like, one of those guys starting in the mailroom for CAA or something. I don't regret one moment of any of my trainings, not one, because if you don't know every aspect of this business, and I mean every aspect, however humbling it may be, I feel it's the key to success.
What are some of the things you learned at the bottom that you still utilize at the top?
Great organizational skills, cleanliness, forethought, planning ahead, anticipating and being ready for any and every possible thing that may happen on a set. The director might suddenly decide that he wants you to make that 20-year-old guy look like an 80-year-old black woman, let's just say hypothetically. I always overdid it. People tease me. I would have 10 bags of stuff. But particularly in the case of working with Michael Mann, I don't regret for a moment having all those 10 bags. I also did a film called Bandits, and I worked with a really talented makeup artist named Jerry Quist, who was at the time, and perhaps still is, I don't know, Bruce Willis's personal. And I remember thinking, my gosh, he has so many bags. And that man was prepared for anything at any time. So I was always watching people around me whom I aspired to be like, whom I thought were really talented and really successful. And so organization is a key. Cleanliness is a key. Having a really good product is a key. Being aware of the consistency and what product is and how products interact with each other is a key thing. But I will say that during this time, that we are all quarantined, it's a great opportunity for all of you students to study what goes into every makeup bottle, whatever you have, even if it's not a lot of makeup. Practice your skills, study your skills. In a moment when I walk around, I'll show you the books that I have, the workspace that I have. You can get a foam head and practice laying hair on it. You can do any number of things. You can actually really grow during this period in leaps and bounds. It's time to take all the things you've been learning at cinema makeup school and in life and start to incorporate them into the new and up and coming you. Because needless to say, we're all going through a transition, and we are going to come out better at the top at the end of all of this, and stronger and more knowledgeable about a lot of things.
Let's talk about your department head career. You've worked on a lot of major movies. What have you worked on, and what are some of your key learnings from those things?
Department headed several television shows, department headed a movie called Flight with Denzel Washington. There's been a period of time where I worked with V. Neal. We all know who she is. And we'd start movies together and she'd have to leave. So I would end up taking over as department head in The Soloist, Spider-Man. On Mockingjay, the last two movies, we were both department heads and had equal title. Napoli Ever After, which is a movie that I did with Sanaa Lathan where she shaves her head. I was very graciously called by Lee Daniels to come down and department head a TV show that he did called Star. I was very flattered, and I thought it was a really great experience. Future Man, I designed that show and just department headed that show for 2 seasons. So all the looks of those characters were created by me. Department headed a movie called Blue, which is a huge movie in the Bollywood community. It was the biggest movie ever made. It was all shot sort of underwater and above water. And so that was very challenging because I had to cover Sanjay Dutt, who's a very famous actor in India. And he was covered in tattoos in different colors. And at the time they were using just Liquitex. We covered his tattoos. You couldn't see them. He was actually kind of blown away. It looked really spectacular. And the lead actress, I did head to toe body makeup on her. And I happened to run into Steve Laporte, who's a great makeup artist at Nigel's Beauty. And I said, I've been doing all these experiments to try to achieve this perfect makeup that won't go away in salt water. And I've been actually doing it on myself and going down and throwing myself into the water in Venice Beach. I mean, I really was trying everything I possibly could do. And he gave me some really great tips that I've used to this day under certain circumstances. I department headed a movie that I'm very proud of called Immortals. I think it's a beautiful movie, and I think we all did a really great job.
And if you are unfamiliar with Nikoletta's career and her resume, you can definitely head to her website, which is nikoletta-skarlatos.com. I'll make sure you guys have a link to that. So definitely check that out. And as I've said with the other interviews, if you're sitting at home and you are not sure what to do, look at their resumes and start watching those movies and studying what they've done, because there's definitely a lot to be learned that way as well. So you've worked in period pieces, you've worked in international underwater pieces, things like that. And I know that one that most people can recognize is Hunger Games. So talk to me a little bit about that, because it was such a unique and varied movie. Like there was some really glamorous, fun, colorful things. And then there was like down and dirty minors, things like that. And then there's like the battle scenes as well. So talk to me about balancing these different types of makeup.
Okay, the Hunger Games, and we also did Pirates, which is a fantastical movie, which had so much makeup going on. But in the case of the Hunger Games, the writer chose our producer, who's a fantastic producer. You've heard of her, Nina Jacobson, who has done so many successful things. I mean, she's just extraordinarily talented and kind and just really smart. And Suzanne Collins, the writer, had this project and chose Nina to produce it, and chose V, and then myself. We were on the film, and she gave us a lot of latitude to create these characters. And we did a lot of testing, no question about it, but she allowed us to take the interpretation of the character off the page and show things to her. And she was always so excited about it. Oh, I love that. That's what I always envisioned, but I could never do that. And, the last 3 movies we worked with Francis Lawrence, who I think is just one of the most amazing directors I've ever had the honor and the pleasure to work with and for. He's got such vision. He's so low key. You never hear him raise his voice. You just want to do your very best for him. And he in turn is very inclusive and allowed us to create also in terms of all these environments, Marielou. One goes to the costume department and the production designer. As a matter of fact, I ran into Phil Messina, who's the production designer, the other day at Whole Foods, and we talked about it. You have to look at every single environment. What type of film are we going to use? What kind of lighting are we going to use? What are the elements? What are the colors? Why do they have this particular coal? What color should the coal be? So it doesn't just get so grimy that you can't see the definition and the pores and the kind of the misery in the people. You can take makeup and create mood really easily. The very flamboyant and crazy and out there capital, how far out there can we go? And because they were sort of almost grotesque, their sense of beauty was what we would probably think was a little bizarre, but it allowed us huge creative freedom. And it was kind of a makeup artist's dream. And all the people that we came in who were also equally talented really got to use their imagination. In some of the other District 13, that was a different kind of mood again. And so the first two movies, V was doing Effie, and the second two movies, I was doing Effie. So Effie is kind of more deconstructed in the second two movies, but she still is trying to make herself look good with whatever material she can find in that really rugged, lacking environment. So those films were great. Listen, V and I have both said we would be together 24/7, sometimes 6 days a week filming, and then the entire crew would go out and laugh all night long. It was so funny. We were being interviewed for something for myself, Glenn Hetrick, the great prosthetic artist, and V and Francis for all of these Hunger Games interviews. And in the middle of one of the interviews, somebody said, Nikoletta, how would you describe Francis? And I said, well, I sort of said what I just said. And I said, well, it's just sort of like that old adage, the fish stinks from the head down. And everybody just kind of, looked at me, which Glenn defended me later because it comes from a Greek proverb. But, in other words, the goodness comes from the top down and it trickles down into the people. And I was trying to give an analogy of just how great he is, because everything started with him. And because it started with him, and he's so positive and he's so creative and he's so mellow and he's very serious. And he's the kind of person you just want to do your very best. And he's so respectful. The crew was impeccable. We all loved each other. And I had a lot of that to John Killick, the producer, Nina Jacobson, Francis Lawrence, and all of the crew. Everyone down to the extras. Fantastic. Wonderful people. Transpo, you name it. Craft service, hair, makeup, wardrobe, costume, whoever I'm leaving out, set dressing, set decor. Everyone was top notch. And we're still friends, says a lot.
It does come from the top down, because I've experienced that in all sorts of different types of organizations in different industries, that if the leadership is strong, then the rest of it can be strong. So talk to me a little bit about leadership. You've led lots of teams in your department, and then you've also been part of a bigger thing, like you are one cog in a larger machine. Right. What is important to you in a leader?
As a leader, you have to be strong. You have to be knowledgeable. You have to know everything about the movie from beginning to end. You have to know your craft. You can't tell somebody to do something if you don't know how to show them how to do it. You have to be, I would think, very selective in who you choose to be on your team. I don't believe in cliques. I never have. I hire people from all walks of life. There have only been one or two occasions where I've had to release someone or send them home early or something where they were, just one person can destroy an entire makeup and hair trailer, trust me, unfortunately. So one has to be careful of just creating and generating good energy and setting up those boundaries right away. Basically, we can have a good time, everybody, but this has to happen every day, and that has to happen every day, and this has to happen every day. And if it doesn't happen, you're going to hear from me. You may not be late, for example. One thing I'll mention is, you may not leave your station a mess. This was always and has always been a battle, not with every producer, but especially with some television producers, to the necessity to clean every single brush and every single beauty blender and keep those actors' brushes separate from everyone else's. This is pre-COVID now. They have to be dried properly. And, the pressure from Transpo, they're getting a pressure from the producers because of the turnaround issues. Of course, we're exhausted because we're the second people there after transportation, but if one person doesn't clean a brush and the next day somebody gets a sty, everyone's going to get that infection, and it's no joke. So where do you save your money? Where do you cut costs? I will never cut costs or cut edges when it comes to sanitizing my actors' brushes and making sure my station and all of my trailer and the people with whom I work are equally as conscious of these things. They're very important. I've seen things that, and I'm sure you have too, that would just make you shudder, you know. And I just on sets where I've been working as a background person, somebody just sticking their same brush into things, you're just going, oh my God.
Speaking of your organization and your cleanliness, you wanted to show us what you've been working on, what your kits look like at home.
Not just periodically, but pretty consistently. If you're working constantly, check your makeup, check the dates. Mascara only lasts for 1 or 2 months, and then that's the end of it. And it collects bacteria. Otherwise, it's out. Some people have mascara for months and months. They just don't know this. And one thing I noticed, which will also make you laugh, is, and I said this to V yesterday, I said, I must have about 8,000 brushes. And I'm not kidding. I'm going to show you. And I know why I have these brushes, Marielou. I have them because I've always been conscious of the planet. I'm going to segue for a quick second. I've been making and using my own skincare since I was a child. We ate organically from the village. I lived in Greece. We have this beautiful planet. One of the silver linings right now of COVID is the pollution of this planet is cut in half. So as we go forward, do we want to create a lot of plastic and have to be throwing it away? Or do you just get a lot of brushes and you keep them super clean and sterilize them? First, we'll start here because this whole house is kind of full of makeup. And then I found all of these things. Every single one of these things, can you see these? Right, is every movie I've ever done. All of these are brushes. Just have a look. This is just like little brush area number 1. These, of course, are V's, but everything is clean. Everything is in perfect order. Everything's been cleaned and aerated and then put back in a place that is climate controlled. All of these, my friend, are brushes. All of them.
And what do you use to clean your brushes?
I will use shampoo sometimes. These are all same thing, brushes. I mean, when I show you how many brushes I have, you won't believe it. Shampoo, sometimes 99% alcohol. It depends on the situation. More brushes. This is an older palette of these, sorry. So brushes, and brushes, and even more brushes here. Full of brushes. More brushes right here. There's yet another room full of brushes, but I'll just kind of slide down. Tell me if you can see this. Everything is labeled. Everything is labeled. Can you see this? Every single thing. Look at this drawer. Everything has to be up to date, clean, never opened. Check your eye drops. If they've expired, they have to be thrown out. End of story. Mascara wands should be come in packs and closed. Lip brushes, duo, the same thing here. Face charts, beauty blenders are clean. I've got black and pink palettes, palette paper. It's very straightforward. Of course, I work for Chanel. I have a lot of their powders. I still have Visiora, and I spoke to Donald Moat the other day, and he had just used Visiora on Donald Craig. Visiora is an old but really fantastic makeup. I've worked a lot with Julie Hewitt. I love her makeup, so I've got quite a lot of it. You know, so these like drawers full of makeup. MAC blot powder, bronzing powder, more makeup forever, old, not old, French makeup that I like. MAC airbrush foundation, of course, hair caps, gloves, lots of gloves for sanitation, face creams, bath soaps, moisturizers, sunscreen, men beard care, ointments, all tanning products. This is a fantastic product that you're not aware of called De Référence de Bastien. It's a friend of mine who does only feet work, and he's incredibly talented. He's unbelievable. He does these pedicures that would change a person's life. Hair treatments. You see how organized this is. All of my concealers, my shadows, my eyeshadows, more shadows, makeup forever. I have probably a million Illustrator palettes. Illustrator palettes, the one thing I did not succeed in doing was to open all of them up and refill them yet. but that's the next step. And then if they've really gone too far down the road, you just have to throw them out, unfortunately, or perhaps recycle them to a school with somebody who wants to fill them up and use them. Of course, we have wigs, all lip glosses, lip liners, mascara wands. These are various things. These are various things that I use for special effects. Everything has its place, everything. You know, here's some Bluebird. I know you're familiar with this. This is a different kind of tattoo color. I happen to also really love this product for tattoo cover. Eyeshadows, beautiful eyeshadows, blotting papers. Everything's in order. We're going to come back to this room, but right now we're going to go in here. I'm going to open this door. This is one of two. So all the way up to the top, every single box has been gone through. Every single product has been checked. Everything is labeled. Everything is labeled. Everything is in its proper place. Here, for example, I went through all my glues. I'll just tell everybody, if you're ever doing any makeup on somebody and use any kind of spray, you have to use a face shield, always. These are some products that I love. Obviously, you can tell I love Final Seal and Blue Marble for sealing purposes. This is something that is hard to find, Detach All, which is like liquid gold. And then everything, every single thing, not to mention when it says Justin Stafford glue, that's a glue that Justin Stafford made for a mustache that I'm going to show everybody that I did on flight. And it was a fantastic glue. And so I know exactly what that glue is. In here, there's a glue that we made for Woody Harrelson that is vegan. All right, more effects stuff, eyelashes, nail polish, all lipsticks in their places with their labels, MAC makeup, more makeup. Actually, I just want to show you how well organized this is. This is how people should be organizing, okay? In plastic containers, things should be protected, period. Can you see that? Okay, I mean, it's not just some little throw stuff into a box. That's not the way it works. Clothes, all of these merged, some bottles of these. Here are more brushes, so don't laugh, but I told you I had a million brushes, so look. Here are more brushes of these. I mean, a girl can never have enough brushes if she's in this. There's this, and then there's this part. Bald caps, tears, gelatin, eyelashes, illustrator, 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 blood effects, a lot of stuff. And then, okay, I'm going to show you this in a moment. Then we go over here. Every single one of these cases is filled with makeup.
Oh my gosh.
Just a little out there. And as you can see, everything's labeled. Troubled skin, earplugs, multicolored earplugs, half sizes, all hair work, my hackle, shaver, loose hair, specialty Q-tips, shaving. This is blood of all kinds and flocking material. Ben Nye sunburn makeup. This is blood. This whole thing is full of blood. I think I showed you this. This one's full of dirt. This entire box is filled with prosthetics. These are the original blisters from the Hunger Games, from Catching Fire. Yeah, I mean, these things are kind of things you just don't want to throw away. And they're well kept because they're in this place, which is climate controlled. All of these things, every single one of them is labeled. Shaver oven, airbrush, blow dryer, fake nails. This whole thing is eyelashes. This is all facial hair. Pretty comprehensive.
And you're now ready to go on set anytime. If they were like, we need you on a show tomorrow, you could do it.
Well, as a department head, when I go on a show, they pick up, I would say about 15 of those action packers. They go to a movie. And I fill the trailer. I have a lot of stock. Up there in the left-hand corner, so everyone knows, it's a ready-made office box. It's all ready to go. It's got time cards, all the rules and regulations of both unions in it. There's not missing a beat. Everything's up to date, because rules change quite a lot. Always have gloves. Of course, we are always using masks. A Greek always has Windex, so don't laugh. What can I say?
That's true.
It really is. Look, do you think I'm joking? Look at it here. I tried to hide it, but I can't.
Yes.
A Greek has Windex. What are you going to do? So I found this. And so this is a work table, everybody. So if you're home and you want to practice, I'd say come on over to my house and practice. Unfortunately, we can't right now, but you find a space like this. It has to have ventilation. So I made sure that my table was down here where I have air. I don't have a highfalutin trailer that can suck the air out. So if I'm doing something with chemicals, make sure everyone's protected. I worked with Bruce Greenwood. This is a hand-laid mustache. I mean, not hand-laid, excuse me. He made it for me. And it's the only mustache I used for the entire show, and you cannot see a cell on it. I was very proud of this. And that glue that he made was just impeccable. He actually looks like Sully in that picture. This is, when you do movies, they change the names because everything's very top secret. So at the time when we were doing the Mockingjay movies, it was called The Idiom. So this is what a typical crew list looks like. All right. And when you set up your notebooks, you want to make sure you have everything in order. Everyone's names, crew lists, research papers. In the case of this is a film I did with Anthony Hopkins. This is interesting because this is the makeup test that I did with him. It's called Solace. These are all the tests for all the actors. Test makeup. It has everything written down, what I used, why I used it, what they said about it. Did they like it? Did they not like it? Why didn't they like it? Here's one with Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Is that the right level of facial hair? Do we have to lay in facial hair? Do we have to change the color and paint each one individually? What are we looking for? What is the director looking for? So you always have these sheets. You always write everything down explicitly for each scene. Scene number this, day number here, what is the character's name, and what's her real name?
That chart that you have in there, is that something you've designed, or where you filled out all of the information, or is that a template you can find?
I have several of these charts. I have French charts, and I got some in Montreal. I've got some in Paris. There are different ones. I happen to really like this one because I had to design this scar for Tony's character. And I just like the way that they're laid out. They're very kind of straightforward. Foundation, highlight, shadow, powder, blush, eyes, mascara, eyeliner, brows, special information. And underneath here, you can also write a lot of special information. And then I put a boatload of pictures, one on top of the other, for each scene, and especially for each character test. Because I did, I tanned Anthony up, Tony, as he likes to be called for this film. He always had been looking so pale, and he agreed with me. And he was so funny. He said, maybe I should just try being an actor, because he's supposed to sort of be, sickly. And he made me laugh. And of course, he's a great actor, and he did a fantastic job, and he was wonderful to work with. This is a very interesting thing to show everybody. Abby Cornish, who's blonde, they wanted, in this one weird dream sequence, they wanted her to have blood poured over her head. And so I sort of fought tooth and nail. I said, you cannot pour blood on a blonde-haired lady. You have to bald cap her. Then you've got to put a wig on her. You've got to make sure it's completely sealed and her hair is completely protected underneath the bald cap. Then you can pour the blood. Then you better get all that stuff off and clean her up as fast as possible. Only then will she not get her hair stained for, which could last a long time. And Colin was in the movie, who I love, Colin Farrell. Great. I'd done 2 movies with him. I did Miami Vice, and this was the second one. He's just one of the best people ever. I feel so blessed with the people I've worked with, So there's just a little look at a binder and, keeping track of everything. This was the test day. It's not at all what they wanted, but the actor and I conferred, and we just did it, and then they liked it. I have I'm going to show you this. Here's a picture of Jack Pierce, one of the greatest all-time makeup artists. This goes back to 2008. Rick Baker, Leonard Engelman, Greg Canham, V, and Kazuhiro were doing a special makeup effects class. Go to all of those classes. Attend all of those seminars. Go and ask those people, how did you do this? Ask them to explain to you, and they will. And they're very informative. I just, if you're not getting this feeling from me, everything has to be clean, organized, in place, and hopefully you have enough room to house all of this business. Literature, books, research. Okay, you can't really see, but up here, there's a whole makeup section. Yeah, it's kind of like makeup artists, color, making faces by Kevin Aucoin. So I've got a lot of books. I have a lot of research books. I just gave a lot of them away, but I bought tons of books for the Civil War. Down here are all the binders of most of the movies that I've done. Here's Mockingjay 1 and 2, Free State of Jones. These are the principal actors. I could open up and show it if you'd like. Flight, I did. Future Man, This is just all kind of research, tattoo research. I have a whole area that's kind of not a bit, not out for you to see, full of tattoos and all sorts of tattoos that I've designed, tattoos to be used in other projects. Of course, there's Rick Baker's book. I have a flight I can show you, directed by Robert Zemeckis, cast photos, all of the actors, who they play, what scenes they're in. This is nice, vomit mix, And then it goes right through the actors, and it looks at the various ways they're supposed to look. The second actor was played by a British actress called Kelly O'Reilly. The third, and so this is all tests on her, makeup used on her, why it was used, what day it was used, what was done, what wasn't done, what kind of tattoos. Why does she have these tattoos? You see, I write myself these notes. She's a groupie. She dreams of being a photographer. She wants to have piercings. She wants to have the word hope because she's kind of like really a hopeless person. All of these things. So I come up with designs. I mean, I even go back to the reference to Amy Winehouse, with cracked nail polish. And I drew these different ideas of what could possibly be something that Robert Zemeckis might like for this. And then we go into makeup tests. So she shot herself up, so I did tests. She's a heroin addict. And so I had to give different variations of the heroin needle marks. How old were they? How did they look? Did they look real? So of course I did a lot of research, not just looking on the internet. I mean, a lot of research. I even went and talked to drug addicts. Oh, and then she wanted all these different tattoos. And then she gets bruised. All these things, believe it or not, are really important. Oops, that's nice. Wrong. Oh. That's from a different movie. Post-shower, healthy look. There are all these different looks. Look how different she looks. It has to be like this. There's no other way to do it, honestly, I think, to my mind. And then there's John. John Goodman played, you see it where it says number 3, Harling Mays. So I have the character's name, and then I have everything that we do with John. Here's his picture. I also always take these pictures, and put them all over the trailer. In order of cast members, it makes the cast feel inclusive. It makes them feel like they're involved. We're making a movie together, and everyone can identify the character with the actor. And so they understand what's going on because they've read the script, because I want them to know, and they understand what this character's going through. So sometimes actors want to just be called by their character name. I want to be called Harling. I'm not saying that John did, but that can happen. These are just different tests of facial hair. The next one was Don Cheadle, and so forth and so on. And I did this thing with Tamara Tooney. Well, here's this guy. Okay, he gets bashed in the head. So I had to do this camera test several times because I wanted the bruise to look a certain way. And I wanted it had to age a certain way over a certain number of days. And I didn't want it, here's my problem with bruises. It just can't look like you splotched some red thing on and then it stops. It has to have an organic, this looks to me very real. It's not because I did it. This is swollen. And then it starts to swell out like it should. And there's a little irritation down here, but the cut is right here. There are different variations of this. Different variations. Several, actually, until the director and everybody agreed that they liked. This is the kind of stuff that I do. I mean, I still have this. This is the color. These are the colors that I use to create my bruise. And they had to be the right mixture of colors in order to make that, first of all, contiguous, constant continuity. But this, because I'm very visual, I need to see that kind of thing. Of course, I'll write down what the colors were and which palette and whatnot, but it's in the act of, oh, here's one on my head. Tamara Tooney plays Margaret Walsh. She's one of the flight attendants on the plane, and the plane goes down, and she ends up having to have her face sutured, and she gets cut up and gashed up, and she's, obviously she has to have a certain kind of painting done when we paint the bruises because she's Black, and her skin tone and the undertones of the bruising will be completely different. So this is actually actual correct usage of taping up an injury. And there's the original stuff. I still have it. Yeah, I have it and the date on it. And then it just, just goes on and on. So that kind of give us an idea about how to organize a film.
You've been in the industry for a long time and you know how stressful it can be. So not even just organizing, but like the nature of the industry is very stressful. And I was shocked because you showed me a picture of you where you're just a completely different person than what I see right now, but you are very passionate and it's been like a lifelong thing for you, your health and wellness. So talk to me about that journey. What happened there and your transformation?
Suddenly, during the filming of 2 movies, my mother died suddenly. And that was on Mockingjay. The production was very gracious and flew me I had to take 2 planes to get to Palm Springs from Atlanta. That was a pretty difficult week of having to identify my mother, tell my father, and all the above. Without going into great detail, I started to create, which we all create, and I see this in a lot of young ladies and men and actors in their 20s, the hormone cortisol, which just is the fight or flight hormone. You're just in full, you got to, survive mode. And a person might not even be eating that much and create this stress hormone. And it's really intense, and it has a cumulative effect. And it's not just about female transitional goings on, even at a young age, maybe, or even male hormonal. It's a question of one's body gets so out of whack from being in fight or flight mode. We're not meant to be in that mode 24/7. And so suddenly I was thrown into fight or flight mode. And I think I was also in shock. So I didn't really realize it. And I'm not special. Listen, a lot of things happen to a lot of people. I'm just saying it happened to happen in the middle of one of the biggest movies on earth ever. And I was trying to hold it together and go to work and not reveal how I was feeling inside. So it manifested itself by my creating a lot of cortisol. Anybody will tell you I was not myself. At that time, it was so intense that after about 4 or 5 months, I went from weighing, 138 pounds to weighing almost 210 pounds. That's the picture that you saw. And nobody believes it. And I was really just not in my body and not grounded. And at a certain point, I was not even eating that much. It was just this cortisol. So I made a commitment in the beginning of 2016 to be healthy, because for many reasons, when one is not aligned and eating properly, one can act out differently. Different foods affect people different ways. In the film business particularly, which is a social medium, it's hard one must maintain their calmness and try not ever to be in reactivity or take things personally. None of us are perfect. We're often in close quarters, and often we are being the sounding board for our actors. So whatever is going on, you sort of stuff it. So one had better find a way, I'll speak only for myself, to find a way to stay balanced. So usually after every film, I would go to this place where I go to just sort of detox and clean and just completely recenter myself. That didn't happen in this case. It just sort of went from one extreme to the other over a period of the next couple of years, because then my father died and I was just finishing The Free State of Jones, and that was toward the end of 2015. And that's when I made this commitment, and I have pretty much stayed true to it ever since. And I balanced my hormones, I balanced my thyroid. I've helped a lot of people, which makes me happy. A lot of people call me constantly, "Oh my God, what did you do? Did you have something done?" And I said, no, I have day by day been living this program, because otherwise it's stress. For me, I believe that stress is the genesis of all diseases, or I will call them health opportunities. And we are, all of us right now, in a very stressful situation. All right. So can either choose to be consumed by the stress, or try to take these things, like I talk about, something called cortisol calm and L-theanine that calm down your system, and focus on creating your present now for your future. You makeup artists, work on your craft, work on your health, work on, start creating in your mind all of the things that you want to do, all of the great things. When do we actually have time? I mean, if there's a silver lining, to have a month to just really look at ourselves instead of always rushing here, rushing. Look at ourselves, come together with the people with whom we're close, and do a kind of a self-evaluation. And also on a larger scale, an evaluation of where we are on planet Earth and as a human community. So yeah, that picture probably threw you for nobody believes that it's me. And I was really funny. I didn't want to show it. And I thought, you know what, I was giving a talk somewhere about makeup, and in the middle of it, this woman said, "Oh, you just seem like you've had the perfect life." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to show you a picture, because everyone goes through things. It's simply not true. I've been working since I was 9 years old. I've worked hard to get where I am. It has not been easy. It's not an easy business." And I showed her this picture, and I said, "This is I, you know, actually 6 months ago, within 6 months, I had sort of transformed." And she didn't believe me. And I said, "I'm telling you, on a very consistent daily basis, discipline." It's the same thing with being a makeup artist. It's discipline and having a sense of humor and not taking yourself too seriously. And, you know, the old adage, you know, what you think of is really none of my business. I mean, all of these things just, you know, just have to sort of, I said this also about social media. Social media was making a lot of my actors really crazy. And then it started to affect me, and I kind of understood it. I thought, okay, sometimes it's time to just shut that stuff down and be in who you are, because who you are is perfect, and who you are is beautiful, and who you are is unique. And there's only one of you. And you don't have to be like that person. You have to be like this person, yourself. Maybe not everyone's going to like you, but as long as you love yourself and you're doing the best that you can, I think that it's extraordinarily important.
I love that, because you can't be anyone else except who you are. You can try, but that's where discomfort happens and unhappiness happens and depression happens, because you can't make yourself someone else. You can only make yourself who you are, but you can make yourself better, and you can work on yourself in a way that improves who you already are.
And it's not easy. I mean, but you know, I just had a makeup artist in Atlanta call me. I've done a lot of movies with her, and she's gorgeous. And she had suddenly ballooned up to, you know, 65 pounds. And I said, "What's going on with you?" And she was, when we kind of really nailed it down, she was going through fight or flight mode. So I've kind of written a protocol that goes hand in hand with what I'm doing on a larger scale. And I've sent it to a lot of people, and you know, I'm not saying that I'm certainly not a doctor, but it certainly has helped. And it helps when one comes to know their own body, listen to your own body. You know, one kind of chocolate is not a chocolate that everyone's going to love, for example.
That's true. That is true. And you have to like listen to your body and what's right for you. So I think that's really great. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you check out Nikoletta's website, NikolettaSkarlatos.com. You can also follow her on Instagram. She's got lots of beautiful photos, and I'm sure going to be sharing more of her health and wellness information there, because she's got such a breadth of knowledge in that department. So any last tidbits that you'd like to tell the students and the viewers?
You know, when you're in a situation where you listen to people and you still have to keep a firm hand, but you can have fun, but you have to keep a firm hand and be professional on set. It just elevates all of us as makeup artists. It can be a pleasant and pleasurable experience. It does not have to be, it does not have to be anything less than that.
Wonderful advice. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. Again, I'm sure we're going to see more of you at the school once things get going again. So I'm excited for that. Thank you for all of your knowledge.
Thanks, Donnie. Have a really great day.
If you guys like these videos, you like these interviews, please let me know in the comments, give it a thumbs up, and let us know who else in the makeup industry you would like to see us interview. We'll see you guys next time.